So, hi everyone, thank you for watching. And today I have the absolute pleasure of speaking with Gerald Ng, CEO of World Lethwei Championship. Gerald is doing an absolutely fantastic job of bringing the millennial sport of Lethwei to a global audience. Lethwei is a beautiful and brutal sport in equal measure that is steeped in spiritual, cultural, and national traditions and is very, very, very close to the heart of the Burmese people. But it is a sport that is currently, I'd say, underappreciated around the world. And so there's currently a big expansion going on. So it's very, very exciting times. Gerald, thank you for taking the time to speak with me, by the way. Really do appreciate that. Um,
Thank you for having me and a great introduction to the sport of Leeway.
oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful sport, absolutely wonderful. And we'll get into that today on a number of levels. I think a good place to start with this, Gerald, is obviously how you got involved in Lethwei in the beginning in terms of how you became CEO of World Lethwei Championship, WLC. And let's start there. Let's go back to not the beginning as such, but the beginning of your current role, if that makes
Right.
sense, please.
Yeah. I've always been interested in sports and I'm not that great an athlete, so I know from an early age that I was never going to become a professional sports person. So the best way to still be involved in sports is through being a sports professional and executive in the industry. And I've worked in one championship. I've worked in broadcasters like 11 Sports Network. I've written a ton of articles all over the world for different media outlets. Um, and I met my current bosses, the board of directors for World Heavyweight Championship in Singapore, through some of my ex-colleagues. And these guys wanted to start their own organization to promote Lewe. And they needed someone to help them drive the day-to-day operations of it. So they asked me if I wanted to move to Myanmar. And I've never been here. I heard it's a beautiful country, but prior to coming, I've never actually um, traveled to Myanmar. And I said yes, and I packed my bag, signed a contract, and then a couple of days later, I was here. And I've been here for 4 years now, going to 5 years.
Excellent, excellent. That's a fantastic story. And obviously, on a personal, slightly more personal note, before we get into the whole organization, how did you find adapting to life in Myanmar? I mean, was it sort of an easy transition? Were there some things to get used to? Just what was what was the transitional experience like when you first moved there?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a different environment. Has a real personable small town feel to it, and I think that's the coolest part of it is that even in a big city, everybody just treats you like a friend or a neighbor.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Okay. Now, here's another aspect to that. I mean, obviously, Myanmar is sort of seen as a developing country, and I think that's true. In terms of growing a global business from a developing country, I'd imagine there's some advantages, there's some disadvantages, there's probably, pros and cons, like anything in life. But let's talk about a few of those. I mean, what are some of the on both sides of it, some of the pros and cons of growing a global business
Right.
from a developing country, please.
I think the biggest advantage, of course, is that with developed countries, everything has kind of been done and tested before. And with a country like Myanmar, the opportunity is nobody has ever done this for Lewe ever on a global scale the way we have. And you will not find this opportunity anywhere else to introduce a commercially viable sport that people actually want to watch on this level ever, or I don't know, in the next 20 years. Yeah. So that definitely is the biggest opportunity for us. And of course, some of the challenges comes with like we don't make a lot of money from ticket sales, and our international audience is actually our biggest revenue stream with our broadcast rights. Um, the average GDP per person is not that high in Myanmar, so we try to like we really see it as um, trying to just give away not really give away the tickets. Our tickets are all sold out, but we just give it at the lowest price that we can. We don't actually um, see that as a source of revenue. So that's definitely one of the challenges. And I guess the other challenge is uh, with a country like this, and nobody has ever done anything like what we are doing here, is finding the right people and talent for the job. Um, so we source the best people here. We have like the best designers, the best editors, they all work for us. And then for a lot of stuff that we can't actually find here for people with expertise or experience, we bring in some of the best people within the region to come help us freelance.
Okay, that's a good insight. It's a good insight into what you don't always see, from the outside looking in, so to speak. Makes sense. Obviously, I got to give a quick mention to the pandemic and everything that's happened there. I mean, I don't want to dwell on that today, to be honest with you, but let's look at it more from the positive angle, because I think everyone's quite focused on what's gone wrong. But let's focus on some of the positives. I mean, what are some ways, that you've had to get creative and sort of adapt, and some of the good things that have come out of this situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we actually were supposed to host our first international stadium event in Cambodia prior to the pandemic, and we decided not to. And it turned out as we like the fact that we are here today is probably the right decision. But we had to innovate, and we couldn't do the shows in Yangon. So I had all my team work from here, and we did a show in Thailand, and we did everything remotely. And I mean, that was a really really tough undertaking, but we put off two shows in Thailand this year, and some of the fights were absolutely fantastic because I mean, we with the show in Thailand, we couldn't bring in as many athletes as we want from all over the world as we usually do. So a lot of fighters who would never otherwise have the opportunity got to compete in lethwei for the first time, and there were some really really amazing fights on that card.
Excellent, excellent. And another thing with this is obviously I've noticed, with your shows, one of the things I think is fantastic, is you integrate a lot of aspects of Burmese culture into your shows, and it's not sort of all about the fights. There's other aspects of the culture. Was that sort of an intentional thing that was planned out previously, or was it sort of did it sort of happen more sort of organically, let's talk about that a little bit, please.
Yeah, with our show, I see it as a marriage of world class sports entertainment as we know today. All the big sports leagues now are moving towards the entertainment angle, and we want to keep hold of that. We have our amazing entrances, the ringos, the LEDs, the lights, everything. But we also want to use this opportunity and this platform. No other Burmese media is broadcast in this many countries, and we want to use this platform to showcase the culture. And I think that's very important for us as an ambassador and the most visible product that you can find outside of Myanmar. So we have like before the show starts, there's a traditional ceremony where they pay honor inside the ring to pay respects for the fights ahead. We have our athletes dressed in traditional outfits. I think that one is and it's an homage to the one of the many ethnic groups within the country itself. Myanmar is made up of a lot of different ethnicities, and we try to do different stuff to honor each one of them. And with a country as big and as diverse as Myanmar, there's always going to be new, interesting cultural innovations that we can trot out for upcoming events.
Okay, cool, fantastic. Now, another element of the sort of cultural, it's a good thing you said marriage, because that's sort of where we'll go with this next one. Obviously, the rule set, and you've changed some of the rule set with WLC, with installing a point system and a few other changes. Now, I'm sure you probably get asked about this a lot, but it's still worth mentioning, obviously, for anyone that's not as familiar. So some of the sort of situation with that, was there a lot of controversy? Was there a lot of backlash, or was it more well received? Maybe a bit of both. I don't know. I mean, what were some of your experiences during the time of implementing that? if that makes sense, please.
Right. So yeah, just so for people who don't know what the changes are, we introduced a point system, and it wasn't our invention. It was a old rule set that was invented in '94, and nobody used it. And we had empowered the doctors with more abilities to stop the fight if necessary. Um, we've also we've made a few changes for health and safety reasons, and some of these were not well received at the start. We started in 2016, 2017 was our first event. And I remember some like on Facebook, you see a lot of backlash from coaches, from fighters. Oh, this is not traditional lethwei. But I think over the years, as they see what we've kind of done and the profile that we've managed to shine on the country through our achievements, we've slowly won these people over. And at the end of the day, as well, the safety of the athlete is of the utmost priority. So I think a lot of our rule changes were made with the athlete safety in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, that is good. I mean, it's slightly off topic. This is Gerald, but I just tell you this real quick. A good friend of mine, Cyrus Washington, you may have heard of, has competed in lethwei obviously many times, and he told me a story about a fight he had in Myanmar probably 10 years ago, where he knocked out his opponent, and they dragged his opponent back to the corner and woke him up, and then sent him back in to fight. So I don't know how common things like that are, but any safety that you've added in has got to be a good thing. And obviously, I'd imagine that has been very beneficial to a global audience. Would I be right in saying that, to sort of making it more accessible to a global audience? In other words, obviously, you couldn't necessarily have a fight with 9 draws and a win for a Western audience. Could you just expand on that a little bit for me, please, on some of how it's become more accessible to a global audience with regards to the rule changes? This question is more for people that are not as familiar with WLC, but I'd still like to touch on it if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I think fighter safety is definitely our number one priority, but number two is definitely entertaining the audience. We're well aware that we are working in a space now where people are access to so many entertainment options, shorter attention span. Nobody sits through TV with commercial breaks anymore, and we're working within that space, so we have to be smart about it. And some of our changes too have been to innovate and streamline the entertainment to be as fast, quick pace as possible, and give people the most bang for their buck if they decide to invest their time into watching our product. And I think we've done a good job. Our shows are about three and a half hours long, and it's action, and it's nonstop. And yeah, and it's a great product that we have right now. I personally believe that.
Absolutely. I believe it too, very much. So, okay. The other thing to touch on here is obviously in terms of the development of the sport moving forwards now. The talent pool in Myanmar, that's where I'm going with this one. What is it like at the moment? I mean, how many gyms are there in lethwei? How many people training? Could you just give us a little feel for what the, as I say, what the talent pool is like at the moment, please?
Yeah, right now there's a lot of commercial gyms coming up. There's a lot of fighter gyms coming up. I think this is like the golden age for lethwei. The same way mixed martial arts gym and Muay Thai gyms had their rapid growth stage, right? And we're seeing a lot of that. Traditionally, a lot of the athletes, a lot of the lethwei fighters, they come from the less well-to-do areas of the country, and they don't have as much access to current trends in nutrition, in training standards. So that's kind of also part of our broader goal of World Level Championship is to grow the basic training standards for athletes. So we gave them a nutrition plan. We do have regular sports science seminars where we check their body composition, and also like with how innovative sports science is, we can find out like genetically some people are better for kicks than punches and elbows and knees, and it's incredible the amount of stuff you know, and you have to play to your strengths when it comes to that. You need to know what works for you and what doesn't, and be the best athlete you can. And yeah, we've tried to provide as much knowledge and information to the fighters, and um, change change their lives and their training methods. And we also see a lot of international athletes now coming to Myanmar to train. So it's a blend of new school and old school approach as well, like a lot of what world level championship is.
Fantastic. It's good you mentioned that, Gerald, because actually my next question with this is obviously talking about the growth of lethwei around the world. Now, obviously, it's very safe to say that you're growing it very, very well around the world. You're reaching into new audiences and untapped countries and all different things. But I find it interesting that I'd imagine that what you're doing is growing the sport very much in Myanmar as well, because people can see the potential to obviously reach a global audience. And I'd imagine you're taking it away from being seen as a sort of working man's sport to being seen as something that, you know, people can become big stars and make a lot of money and look after their families and so on and so forth. But in your own words, I mean, what are your thoughts on how what you're doing is growing the sport in Myanmar itself, please, if that makes sense?
Yeah, we already see it just right now with more the demographic of the people that come to our events. The traditional lightweight events are predominantly 90% male, largely older. And with our events, we get a younger crowd, and we get a more diverse crowd with a lot of uh, couples, a lot of females, a lot of families. It's more wholesome entertainment package that everybody of all different ages, gender, races can come and enjoy. And all the and like it's a night out. So we do it on Friday night, and the celebrities are out. Everybody wants to be in the same arena as the celebrities, and it's a fun night for everyone.
Fantastic. Okay, brilliant. So the last sort of handful of questions that I have are more looking forward. I mean, we have talked a bit about that, but they're more specifically looking forward. So first things first. I mean, obviously, in terms of your signings, you know, you've got so much fantastic talent. You've got everything legends of the sport with Tutu and So Lino, and obviously you've got international talent with David Leduc. You've got so many people that are quite established, but in terms of the names that you expect to become, you know, very well known, to become sort of household names, big stars over the next couple of years, I know it might be slightly unfair to sort of hone in on a few people, but I'd imagine you probably still have your eye on a handful of people that you expect to be the next big star. So I'd like to talk about that, about the names that, you know, fans should really watch out for and that we can expect big things from over the next 1 or 2 years or 3 years, that sort of time scale, please.
Sure. I think two of our champions are really underrated in the global scale. Antonio Faria is from Portugal. He's our current light weight world lightweight champion, and this guy has fought in lightweight 4 times or 5 times, and he's fought every type of opponent. He's fought foreigners. He's fought the best in Myanmar at all the different weight classes, and he's just knocked every single one out. He doesn't go to a decision. If you see his first fight with Mike Yang, that was non-stop action, and I think on Facebook it has like 20 million views right now. He's just an incredible athlete, and I think he's just super exciting. He's one of the most exciting fighters to watch, and the fact that he keeps winning proves that what he's doing is actually working. Um, Another one would be Sori Manfredi, our first female world lightweight champion. She's definitely one of the best female fighters in the world right now in any discipline, and I'll be confident in her striking abilities against anyone in the world. And she's tenacious, and she's a perfect fit for lightweight. She's what lightweight is, where you're tough, you never back down, and you're tenacious, and you're brave, and she embodies all of the characteristics. And one of the Burmese fighters that I would like to highlight is Hein Tun Ong. And he's fought for us for a couple of our last events. And he's lost some and he's won some for sure. But the guy is young, he's still like 19 or 20. Um, and the scary thing is he's like a Terminator. That's what I call him. I don't know if he understands me, but I always call him Terminator because You can throw whatever you want at him, and he just keeps moving forward. It's remarkable. I remember the last show. His opponent landed a head kick flush, and you see this in fights everywhere, right? With a head kick that nice, the guy goes down as a knockout, but he just keeps moving forward, and you could see the shock of fear in the opponent's face, and it's incredible.
Amazing, the Terminator. That's going to be one of the coolest names in fighting right now. So there we are, viewers. You know some people to keep an eye on. Fantastic, fantastic. So another element to talk about here is in terms of fighters wanting to get involved with WLC, with your organization. I mean, I'm sure you probably get people contacting you all the time because I think lethwei is really seen as a sort of final frontier by fighters. If they've done a bit of everything else, they want to try this. But in terms of fighters who want to get involved or they're interested in signing with you or interested in fighting for you, what can they do? You know, what sort of criteria do you look for? And let's talk a little bit about that side of things.
Yeah, we get too many requests right now. I get all the guys that just got released from the UFC. I get guys from Muay Thai and kickboxing that want to join right now. It's an influx of people, and I guess the unfortunate thing with the pandemic is we don't have enough roster spots for all of them. And eventually we do. We want to add the best talent the world has to offer. And for us too is we want like it's difficult for us right now to evaluate people that have not competed in lethwei before. And I guess one of our goals as well is to kind of build out the structure where there's opportunities in lethwei outside of World Lethwei Championship that can lead them to this stage. And we've worked with different promoters to do shows all over the world. And one of the things I'm quite excited to announce as well is that we are going to do a World Lethwei Championship show in England in 2021. And that will be our first show in Europe. And it's going to feature all the biggest names in lethwei and also in biggest British combat sports names that will be doing lethwei for the first time.
Incredible, incredible. That's one to watch out for, guys. Wow, coming to the UK. I'm very excited now. So leading on from that, Gerald, because that's fantastic news. That, funny enough, that was what I was going to talk about next. Is in terms of countries that you're targeting specifically, because I know that you want this to obviously to be a fully global organization, and it's certainly safely on its way there. But in the more immediate term, I mean, over the next couple of years or however long. What are some of the specific countries? Obviously, you mentioned England. Are there other ones that you're, really got your sights set on at the moment?
Yeah, it really comes down to being commercially viable, right? As any other business. And we see where defense are based on our viewing metrics, based on our social media numbers. And the UK is definitely up there on that list. Other countries that we want to do shows in include the US. And we've got lethwei legalized. I've worked with a few of the commissions. Lethwei is legal in at least 4 states now, and we're working to get lethwei legal in every state in the US. Japan, which has a strong combat sports background, and they've seen lethwei in their country before, and I think with World Lethwei Championship we can do well there. And Cambodia, who is right now one of the biggest markets for lethwei outside of Myanmar. We have a free-to-air TV deal there, and I mean it's crazy to think that lethwei is available on free-to-air TV in Cambodia. And we were planning to do the show there, so I think it's only right that we reschedule that for 2021.
Super. Okay then, Giles. There's only a couple more things I have now. Okay, just a couple more things. One of the things I'd like to give a quick mention to is, in simple terms, your vision for. It's sort of like the story untold. So your vision for World Lethwei Championship over. I mean, I know we've touched on this a little bit, but over the next, and I'm going to give 2 time scales. Let's say the next 1 to 2 years, and then let's say the next 5 to 10 years, which is obviously a much bigger vision. And I don't really have one specific question about that. It is literally just what your bigger vision of the sport and of World Lethwei Championship over the next several years, please.
Yeah, for the 2-year plan, I think I see it something like how an F1 calendar has, right? They don't change countries all the time. We need to find out what are the 10 best cities to host lethwei shows in, and that becomes the new schedule. Every year, January we go to this city, February we go to this city, and so on. And I want to get that established within the next 2 years. And for the greater 10-year plan, 5-10-year plan, we need to grow the entire pyramid. And that starts with having access to lethwei gyms all over the world, at the very base of it, from every town, every city, every mainstream gym to have a lethwei class. Just make it super accessible for everyone to, so that we have more people just training casually in lethwei, creating a framework for amateur competitions, and be able to export that to different countries to host their own amateur competitions and have a international amateur championship, for example. And then also grow the pipeline for, we don't want to monopolize the market. We want to grow a pipeline for other promotions as well, so that you can have kind of a pathway after being an amateur fighter to where you can compete, make a little bit of money, get on TV, get your brand up, and then at the very tip where you compete for World Level Championship. And also we want to get this as a recognized sport. I mean, ideally we would like to be in the Olympics, but that's, I mean, mixed martial art hasn't even been there yet. So that's going to be a long process, but we want to just get to a point where we're in different globally recognized competitions, the Asian Games, the Commonwealth Games, stuff like that.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay then, Gerald. So I got a question now, one of the last ones that's slightly more personal to yourself. If you had to give advice to somebody who wants to succeed in business now, or in that type of thing, because I know we've talked a lot about the sports, I know you're passionate about sports, but you followed your heart, and it's in through your life, and it seems like you're really sort of living the dream, as you mentioned earlier. So I know this is a little bit of a funny one, but any advice that you would have for somebody who's watching this or listening to this who wants to do well in the business world, or in the sports world, in that sense, if that makes sense, maybe 2 or 3 tips that are sort of essential to succeed, if that makes sense, please.
I think just a strong sense of curiosity is definitely number one. I mean, the way I started, I like just kept watching sports, but also found out about the business part that goes behind the things we see on TV, how much these athletes make, the sponsorships, what best to optimize every single thing within the whole sports infrastructure. So just be curious and try to find out more. And I think as a fan too, it helps you as a fan as well, because I feel like you better understand the person behind the sportsman if you understand their challenges. They go through challenges too, and sometimes we don't realize that. There's challenges as an organization, there's challenges as an athlete, there's a lot of challenges in life. And I think if we can understand the entire process better, we grow to have a deeper and stronger connection and appreciation for the sport. And I think curiosity is definitely number one. And the way I started, I just started writing freelance of every different sport I could. I like to express myself in media, and I use that as the foundation to get me to my first permanent job. So I think definitely it doesn't have to be writing. It can be video content. It can be radio. It can be anything. It can be statistics. It can be literally anything. What is your most passionate thing outside of just watching the sport and just doing that out of passion?
Brilliant answer. I knew the answer would be good, Gerald, but that was much better again. And thank you. It's really good to give people that encouragement, that they can follow, what they want to do. And the very last question I have for you is the same type of thing, but from the sports angle, is obviously advice for people who want to succeed in their way as a sport. Obviously, ideally, frame that with you guys at World Lethwei Championship, but also if they want to succeed in it anywhere. Obviously, you've been around a lot of champions. You've probably seen guys fulfill their potential and other guys not, and you've seen these different variations. So at the same type of thing, I mean, what would you regard as sort of essential ingredients, if you like, to succeed in Lethwei as a sport, please?
Yeah, I think the first step is to immerse yourself in whatever you want to achieve. And I think that extends to the goals in life. If you want to become successful in lethwei, immerse yourself in it. Study every single film you can find. Come to Myanmar, experience the culture, experience what it feels like to watch a fight live, and just um, embrace the whole experience. And definitely the second thing is to be smart about it. I think there's a lot of um, in athletes that succeed because they're just smarter than other athletes. They might not be the most talented. They might not even work the hardest. I know a lot of people say hard work always trumps everything, but sometimes working smart helps better than working hard. Uh, and with lethwei, with something that is so new, you need to work smart because there are new techniques that haven't been invented yet. There are new, um, there are old techniques that could be revamped and improved on, and there's a lot of innovations within the fight game itself that can still happen. And I think we see a lot of the champions, our current champions that succeed, is because they've taken all that tradition and upgraded it to help them in their current endeavors.
Brilliant, perfect. So Gerald, the only other thing is when I do these interviews, I always give people a chance to, if there's anything they want to say to their followers or their fans specifically. I mean, that's everything with the questions. Don't get me wrong, we've covered some fantastic material, more than I expected. So thank you. But the only thing I'll ask you is there anything you'd like to say specifically to anyone watching this, to your fans, to your followers, your supporters? If nothing comes to mind, that's cool. But if you have something, sorry to put you on the spot a little bit, but if you have something, over to you, my friend.
No, I think for anyone who's not a fan of lethwei, check it out and watch some of our content on YouTube, on our social media channels, and I guarantee you'll enjoy it. And for people who already are fans of lethwei, we have a lot of exciting news coming up in 2021, and I'll be very excited to share them with you shortly.
Well, Gerald, I mean, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it, by the way. Technology is a wonderful thing. Obviously, brings us around the world, across time zones and across continents, and it's fantastic. But no, I really do appreciate you taking some time out of your afternoon to speak with me. I'm not just saying that. I'm very grateful. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I would love to have you out for one of our shows in the near future.
Oh, I'd love to be there. I'd love to be there. I'd be the first one there. Thank you. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.